Hey, welcome back everybody. We're still talking about flow control, and previously we used an if statement to help us control the flow. If an if statement evaluated to true, then the subsequent block of code would be executed. And if the if statement evaluated to false, then we would skip over that subsequent block of code, perhaps going to an else or an else if statement. Here we're going to learn about a loop. And a loop is a type of flow control, but that lets us go back up to some certain point in our code. So hence the loop, right? We come down as we usually do it, but then the loop will help us come back up, right? And so using this loop, we can execute a block of code a couple times, 1,000 times, millions of times, right? In our course, we probably won't be looping a million times, but it's not unusual for a computer to loop a million times, and a computer can easily do that quickly, depending on the block of code, I guess. But there are a couple different loops, and in this video, we're going to look at the while loop. So let's have a look. And I'm just going to write some notes on the editor for right now. We're talking about a while loop, and a while loop is going to look very similar to if statements. For example, a while loop contains the keyword while, just like the if statement contained the keyword if. So we're going to start with the keyword while. And an if statement also contains a Boolean expression, something that evaluates to true or false, just like the if statement did. And then what came next in an if statement, right? We had a colon. So same thing with the while loop. And then after that, we need the next line is indented. Possibly other lines too, right? Because it's not just the next line, it's all the lines that we want in our while loop, the whole block of code. So this is going to look a lot like an if statement. All right, so I'm just going to give you an example. I think just seeing an example is the best way to dive into the while loop. So I'm just going to define a variable. I'm going to call this spam, and I'm going to set it equal to 0. And then I'm going to say while spam is less than 5 and colon. So there you go. There you see the first three things there. The while keyword, then a statement that evaluates to true or false. And in this case, it's true because spam is 0. Then you see the colon, and then if I hit enter, my editor automatically indents for me, and I'm ready to go. So my editor is smart. If yours is not, then you have to just manually hit the tab key to tab over into the while loop. And I'm just going to say something very simple, like print hello world, right? No big deal there. And then I'm gonna stay indented, so it's still inside the while loop. I'm gonna put this line of code that I'm gonna explain later, and I'm gonna say spam equals spam plus 1. This is a very important line to computer science, and so I do want to say quite a bit about this in a second. So there is my code, and I'm gonna save it, Control S, and then I'm gonna run it. So let's take a look at what happens here. We'll see in the console that hello world prints 5 times. So indeed, that one line seemed to be executed 5 times. That's the looping part. You'll also notice that spam is equal to 5 when it gets done. So let's try to figure out what's going on here. First, spam is set to 0. This is a very important line, and in computer speak, we would say that we've initialized spam to 0. Okay, now the reason that's so important is because on line 8, we have to give the while word a Boolean expression, something that evaluates it true or false. But if we didn't have line 7, then there's no way to evaluate this thing that I've highlighted, right? Spam has to have a value in order to evaluate that. If we didn't have line 7, we would get a syntax error. It doesn't know what spam is to evaluate it. So now it's okay. So spam is equal to 0. So this thing evaluates to true. And so we enter the while loop. We enter the subsequent block of code indented. And so then we print hello world. So that's the first one. It prints hello world once. Then this magical line 10 here comes up. And I'm going to comment this as increment counter. And what we do here is that the new value of spam on the left-hand side, right, is the old value of spam, 0 plus 1. So now spam becomes 1. So we've incremented. Now, spam is equal to 1, so we come up back here while spam is less than 5. So spam is 1. So 1 is less than 5. This thing evaluates to true. I print hello world again, so that's the second time now, right? And then spam becomes, now the old spam is 1, add 1 to it, spam becomes 2 now. So we come back up to the while loop. 2 is less than 5, so we keep going. And then when spam is 4, right? So we do it when spam is 2, when spam is 3. Then when spam is 4, 4 is less than 5. So we come into the while loop, we print hello world. Then spam becomes 5, we increment it. Now is 5 less than 5? No. 5 is not less than 5, so now it's false. And we exit the while loop, which happens to be the end of our program. There are no other lines of code. And so spam finishes at the value 5. So hello world was printed when spam was 0, when it was 1, 2, 3, and 4. Excellent. Now, this line spam equals spam plus 1, this is very important. And it's so important, it comes up so often, that it actually has its own syntax. It has a shortcut. Anybody who programs like for a living and who's familiar with Python or even C would not write this line like this, spam equals spam plus 1. There's a shortcut. It's kind of like the cool, the cool thing to do here. We would say spam plus equals 1. So plus equals is the increment operator. Plus equals 1. It's shorthand notation just so you don't have to write spam twice. So this is doing the exact same thing as the previous line. So now I don't need the previous line. And it's so common, and it really is something that you should know. This shorthand notation for incrementing the counter. And so just to show you that, I'm going to run it again, right? And it works. Now, before we go any further, I want to show you something that happens when you get caught in an infinite while loop. So let's say that we forgot that we had to increment the counter. So I'm just going to comment that out, so now the computer will ignore it. In this case, spam never updates. So spam is 0, and it just stays 0. And 0 is always less than 5. And so this thing is going to loop infinitely long. And I'm just going to show you that here. So there it goes. My console, it keeps going. It's printing hello world. And I have to stop it. So I'm going to have to stop this manually because I'm caught in an infinite while loop. So what you can do is on a Windows machine, click in the console and hit Control C. And you might have to do it a couple times, but then you'll get a keyboard interrupt. So you have to manually stop your infinite while loop. On a Mac, I think it is the Command C or maybe Apple C. All right, so that's an infinite while loop. I'm gonna clear this. I don't like looking at the errors there. All right, now I'm gonna come back to incrementing my counter. So I've avoided the infinite while loop, and I want to compare this actually to an if statement because it looks very similar. So just to compare, I'm gonna write all this code again. Spam equals 0. All of this code, like it's a lot of code. If spam is less than 5 colon, right, increment print hello world, right? And then increment, I'm going to do this new cool shortcut that we learned. Now we're real programmers. Increment counter, right? And I'm gonna comment out my previous stuff here. So I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to hit Control 1 on my machine, and that does like a block comment. So it comments all those lines out at once. So here it is. So here's my if statement, and I'm just going to start fresh. I'm going to clear everything, reset. Yeah. Okay, clear. Okay, so I'm going to run this and we're going to compare now. Save it, run. So you'll see for the if statement, all we've done is we've replaced while with if, and it only executes once, right? Because if is not a loop. And you'll see spam is 1. Those are the differences here. So in this case, spam is equal to 0. So the if statement evaluates to true, and we enter the if statement. We print hello world once, and then spam is updated, incremented to 1, right? And then that's it. That's the end of the code. The if statement does not go back around, does not loop. Okay, so hopefully you understand the difference there. All right, I'm going to reset. I'm going to start fresh, and I'm going to start a whole new example. Still short example now. All right, I'm just going to write out the example, and we'll talk about it as we go. I'm going to define a variable name that is an empty string. So there's nothing inside my single quotes there. And then I'm going to say while name does not equal your name, colon, indent. And I'm going to say please, we'll do it in an with an input. Name equals with an input function. Input, please enter your name. Okay, and then outside of that loop, we're going to print thank you. Now, if you really understood the previous example, you might want to consider then, what do you think that this code is going to do? Think about it. Pause the video if you really want to think about it. Like, what do you expect this thing to do? You should have a good understanding of what it's going to do. But I'm going to save it, Control S, and I'm going to run it. All right, it says please enter your name. Okay, Marty. Please enter your name. That is my name. All right, how about Martin? Please enter your name. How about, oh man, this is making me mad. Right? Oh, how about, let's take it literally, your name. That's it. Thank you. And the program ends. So here's what's happening. On line 7, we've initialized name to be empty. We have to initialize it to something, right? Because line 8 has to be evaluated. This Boolean expression has to be evaluated. So name has to exist at this point. It can be false, right? Line 8 can be false, but name has to exist to evaluate it. So okay, at this point, name is the empty string, and so the empty string is not equal to your name. So this evaluates to true. So we're asked, please enter your name. So the first time I entered Marty as name. Now Marty is not equal to your name. So the while loop is true, so it's going to ask me again, please enter your name. So then I input Martin. So that would be name now, and we come back up, and Martin is not equal to your name. So I'm getting frustrated, so I input all these characters. Well, those characters now get stored as name, and those characters are not equal to your name. So we were asked again, and this time I typed in literally your name. Your name gets stored as name, and name now is equal to your name. So now with the not equals operator, this evaluates to false. So we kick out of the while loop, and then we print thank you, which is outside of the while loop. Notice there is not indented. It is not indented, so it's outside of the while loop. It prints thank you, and that is the end of the code. All right, so I hope all that was helpful to you. And we're going to look at a couple more things that we can throw inside the if statement, or excuse me, inside the while loop. We're going to look at the continue keyword and the break keyword, which will give us a little bit more flexibility in how our while loop can control the flow. So stay tuned. Thank you.